Hello, and let me make another video concerning Anthony Dawn's 31 Days of Tarot. This one is about what decks would I like to have along with me if I stranded on a deserted island. First of all, I was only opting for tarot decks because I have so many, and I have to admit that there isn't any oracle deck that I would take along for something like that, or that I would like to have with me at that moment. And I was like, hell, only 5. There's so many decks I would like to have with me at that moment. I could use a huge box to put all of them in there and hope to have them with me on that deserted island. But okay, I tried to cut it down to 5. And I tried to um, find a certain balance between old decks and new decks that I have. And the new decks, I have chosen them because those are 2 decks I would like to get better acquainted with. One I was using already quite regularly, and still I think there's very much to find out about it. But let me start with the older decks. The first deck I definitely would like to have along with me is my absolute, I love that deck. It's the Druidcraft Tarot. And it is one of the first ones, the question why. It was the first one I could read, and I still like to take a look at the images and go further into the images. I also use it, for example, to make spiritual voyages into a card, and on the other hand, it is druidic, so all the Celtic things and also the Northern and Germanic things, that natural touch with it is something that speaks to me a lot, and so I would like to have that deck along with me. So for anyone who doesn't know that deck by now, let me show you several cards just to give you an idea um, how much I like or why I like that kind of image. It is quite it is quite big, so for people who have small hands, maybe not the best deck to have, but I know that people sometimes cut the boards. Me personally, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't dare touching this deck. So this was my stalker card for years, and I simply love this deck, and it would be my first choice. So if someone said, okay, you only have the right to take one deck along with you, this would be the deck that I would choose. Even if I would shed a tear for 1 or 2 of the other decks, or 3 or 4 or 5 of the other decks that I would have to keep away from me at that moment. The second deck I have chosen is another one that I am using for quite some time. And let me explain why I came back to this deck. It's from Ciro Marchetti, and he has made a lot of decks. And for me, it was absolutely clear when I heard the question, or when I read the question, that I wanted to take one of his decks. There's so many, and I think there's so many that are absolutely beautiful. This year I worked a lot, or last year I worked a lot with his Gilded Royale, his new version of the Gilded deck, and I think it's simply amazing. But the first one, and I am still in love with this deck, is the Legacy of the Divine. And if I think about it several times, it is still my favorite. And I love the other ones, so it's not that I would say it is one and I don't like the other ones and I put the other ones away. Definitely not. Um, I simply like his way to draw, and this was the first one, and it would be one of the decks. It would be very difficult for me to part from it. So on that stranded island, on that island, I would love to have that deck around too. Um, there is another artist that I love very much, and I have many of her decks, if not all of them. And it wasn't even a question which one I would choose concerning her. It's Lisa Hunt. And the deck I have chosen is the Shapeshifter Tarot. I am very much into animal magic, into power animals, into totem animals. So the idea to have humans linked to an animal or to the animal realm is something I like very much, and I like the idea. She put this into her images, so that this would be the one of her decks that I would. Light is not very good. That I would choose to take along in such a case. I know there are a lot of people who have a slight problem with it because for her, wands are air and fire are swords are fire. I like the idea to think a little bit different from time to time because if I see the hermit who has the wand, the idea of bringing up the idea that this might be an air thing is a good idea for me. Sometimes, to think outside of the box. So I like this idea. And for the rest, for people who consider this to be a problem, while she still keeps the idea of air and of the elements. So I go with the elements when I read the cards, and it works out just fine for me. And this is also a very good deck for me to get into the shamanic part of it, to get in contact with animals. So this would be a next of my choice. I took two decks that are newer to me, at least. I bought them last year. And one of them is This Might Hurt the Road. It is quite close to the Rider-Waite, but I like the way the images are made. I simply like this. In a certain way, it seems to be soft, but yet it brings the information, the message through in a way that I simply love, and it has tiny details that differ from a Rider-Waite, and I think that this difference is just exactly what is needed from time to time when I read for other people. Also to bring in a more modern way of a knight, so no, they are not on a horse anymore, but on horsepower. For me personally, it's an amazing way to see the image and to see the cards. And this is the last one I'm going to show you, but for me it is amazing. Um, hey, she has forms. She's not a skinny model, but she has forms, and in a certain way, for me, it is a very full and rich way to show the world, which is, for me personally, more true and more authentic than to show a model-like being that is more an illusion than what the world really is. And last, and definitely not least, the deck I have chosen is the Shadowland Tarot. And if I have to end up on that island, please give me the possibility to take the book along with it, because the questions that are in there are amazing and very interesting, and give me the possibility to go even further inside of myself. And I'm going to show you several cards. I like the style of the cards. I think it is, you want me to say, it's very different from all the upper decks. And that is exactly why I would like to have it along. So if one moment I'm getting in a certain way bored of the upper decks, and really need a completely new look at the card, at the element, at the message behind, I think this would be one of the best decks I could imagine to end up on an island. Oh, I really kept it at 5 decks. I have to, because elsewhere I would show you hundreds of them. I have more than hundreds, so I would come up with a lot of other things. Why no Oracle decks? I'm more into oracles itself, so making runes wouldn't be a problem on an island. Using Kumalak, which is actually an oracle with 42 stones, would not be a problem, and I would get back to them and not to oracle cards. So I would like to keep it at tarot decks and tarot cards and using another way of oracles. I hope you liked my introduction to several of my decks, and thank you for watching.